Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday book launch. I'm Malika Albrecht, the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild, and this is our weekly book launch series that we've been running since the pandemic. So March 2020 was our first, I think it was Jacinta White. And a lot of y'all were there for that and have been here weekly for a lot of celebrations. Tonight, I'm super excited. This is James's first time celebrating his book. And it's your first book, so I think that's important also to really acknowledge.
Yeah.
James is a friend of mine here in the Greenville area. He is a mental health board certified holistic nurse by trade and aspiring author by passion. His love of helping others cultivate inner personal awareness has spilled over into his love of storytelling. Determined to bring his magical world of Maia to life, James has released the first book of his projected series, the Freewater Chronicles Pearl Island. And I just got my copy today. I was super excited. Allegorical in nature, his writing aims to present metaphysical, philosophical, and spiritual concepts under the palatable guise of fiction. As his characters work on finding, sorry, I saw somebody in the waiting room. I didn't want to lose them. Thanks for getting them, Karen. As his characters work on finding purpose and meaning in their own lives, he invites his audience to do the same. James lives in Greenville, North Carolina, with his wife, Susan, 5 dogs, 4 horses, 3 ducks. Actually, you need to update. What is it, 13
Yeah,
ducks
no,
now?
yes. Yeah, we've multiplied since then.
I know, with ducks that weren't supposed to be able to do that. See?
Right.
A
Yeah.
sheep, a goat, and 1 adopted gecko. Thank you so much, James, for being here tonight. I am going to spotlight you. Don't worry about the chat section. That will be mine to kind of be mindful of.
Okay.
And welcome. We're glad you're here.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I want to first say just how amazing this opportunity is and how thankful I am that our paths could cross in this life. This is a really awesome opportunity. So thank you for doing this for me and for everyone else that you have. This is great. So, all right. So yeah, let's get going. So when I watched a bunch of videos from this channel to try to get an idea of like, well, how am I going to do this? And I'm amazed at how many like well-versed and like very, what would be the right word? Very invested writers and authors have come to this channel with a lot of accolades. And I'm sitting and realizing like, oh man, like, so I don't have a literary background at all. I became very fascinated with storytelling. When I was younger, I would watch Japanese animation with my brother and a few neighborhood friends, and I was kind of amazed at just how free that type of storytelling was. That obviously growing up in the West, you have your movies and whatnot, and there always seems to be limitations as to what kind of story could be told. And seeing that animation style, like you could draw anything that you could imagine, that just not a story could be created from anything, the background could be created from anything. And I was just like, I was hooked. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to get into animation. And as my family would know, that didn't quite pan out so well. And so I volunteered to get into film school. I volunteered at the local like film school there to try to get involved in it. It just didn't work out. And I kind of hung my hat on the whole like storytelling jam, but I've never really excelled at much through school, except for I loved writing stories. I just kind of held on to that. And fast forward to life now, and it's interesting how I realized through mental health and through the works of like Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell that storytelling is so much more than just a piece of entertainment or escape. That it's a way that we convey deep and like transpersonal ideas throughout time and space in a way that before we had internet phones or anything, it was the stories that kept cultures together, groups together, and kept the things that were important for a group of people alive. And they were motivating, they were inspiring, they were heroes that you could pit your life against to try to figure out like, ooh, I don't know what I'm going to do, but what would so and so do? And that kind of like brought everything kind of back full circle. That as I reached a point in my life where I was trying to figure out like, ooh, what do I do with this? I've accumulated all this information of, see the books back there, Mr. Brahm, I'll talk about him later. Like, I didn't think the world needed another self-help book, but I also wanted to do something with this knowledge of the self. It inspired my career and inspired my personal passion. And so I had the idea of like, well, let's marry the two things. Let's take what I think are important stories and try to weave them into a way that would be very palatable, where it's like, because I tell people this too. It's like, who am I to tell you how to live your life? But there are these really impactful experiences I've had in my life that I would like to share that helped me. So maybe I could, do a little spin doctor on it and throw it out there for other people to enjoy and benefit from, or not, or just have the choice. You can do whatever you want with it. So that's been a fun ride. And when it comes to like how to do it, there was no publisher. I did this all on my own. But I realized through that process, like, you're not. I've had my parents, my family, Brian, and like some really close friends have come together to help support this project financially, and to be able to support this project in all the creative pursuits that I met a friend of mine, Nevi Lang, who did the cover art for this book. It wraps around. She did an amazing job, and I met her through a friend in high school. And my parents have gone absolutely bananas with recreating the images from this book. You have the like near life-size cutout of my main character in the background here. My mom has actually recently recreated the whole cover on wood because she can, and it's amazing. And it's just been a really wild ride to see this image that has just lived in my head being recreated in so many different ways in the waking world, which has just been super surreal. So yeah, I guess let's read some of the stories, shall we? So I was looking up cliff notes as to like, what do you do for your first book reading? And it's like, definitely don't read the beginning. And so it's like, okay, fine, but I don't know, but I kind of like the beginning. So I figured this would be a good way to like at least introduce the character in a way that kind of gives an essence of what it is. So this is from the general beginning. The story has this main character, Brahm, and his friend companion Bo are sailing the waters of this planet, and there's this giant storm that exists, and nobody really knows how it got there, and it's just keeping the world flooded, and it's just full of enigma and mystery. And this guy is hell-bent on like going to this place, this uncharted territory, just for kicks and thinking that he might find something worthwhile in there. So anyway, so here it goes. All right, so let's see here. All right, we're just gonna jump into the conversation. Don't try and change the subject, Brahm, Bo yells back due to their earlier discussion. How can you take this all so lightly? We'll eventually die out here. Why do you insist that we keep this up? The compass, Bo, Brahm says while holding a golden relic in his pocket. The octagon-shaped device sits heavily in his hands. He stares down at it, smiles. It's like the weight of all antiquity rests within his clutches and his fingers. With a flick of his thumb, he flips off the protective face of the device to reveal its inner contents. 3 wiggling needles lay suspended in glass domes, all pointing towards the massive storm ahead. See, Brahm says, despite having no intention of actually showing his companion his epiphany. All the needles are pointing us right here. This has to be the right way. My father's compass would never steer us wrong. Ugh, Bo grunts, tired of fighting a losing battle. His attention shifts back to the turbulent ocean. The waves that surround them have increased their undulating intervals significantly. He can feel another mighty tidal wave emerging. I tried to tell you before, Bo rebuttals, deciding to go against his better judgment. We never fully understand what the instrument was used for. We just assume it could take us back. We never tried. But it got us so close, Brahm fires back, unwilling to admit defeat. I know it has to be the getting through. Father felt it too, right? You're most definitely a son, Bo says with a shake of his head. He finds himself drifting into the guarded memories of an ancient past. But that's not always a compliment. Come on, Bo, let's give it one more shot, Brahm says as he slams the face of his compass shut. I don't know why I ever agreed to this, Bo mumbles as he spins the wheel, pointing the bow back towards the storm. Sure you do, Brahm says with a playful wink. Into the storm we ride, he cries, lifting his hand, holding the golden instrument high above his head. Another bolt of lightning splits the sky. This time, sensing the newly introduced metallic relic, the electrical discharge diverts its original trajectory. Racing down from the heavens, the surge of energy strikes the golden instrument with concussive force. Serving a perfect grounding wire, the overwhelming force discharges the full extent of its power into the unsuspecting ship captain. Wahoo! Brahm screams as every ounce of his body surges with electricity. His body glows bright, flashing in between states of transparency as if hooked up to a high-powered X-ray machine. As the last surge of current makes its way through his body, he emits an intense flash radiating before fading back into the surrounding darkness. The heroic cries for adventure fade with dissipating light. Only the sound of pelting rains and screaming winds fill the air now. Brahm? Bo asks cautiously, His captain's lingering silence grows concerning. He looks up at the mast, using flickering moonlight to catch a glimpse of the electrifying aftermath. A charred corpse now stands at the top of the mighty ship. Smoke smolders around the captain's burnt contours, while a faint flame flickers atop his head. The flame dances in the wind, consuming what remains of Brahm's long hair. Come on, quit playing around, Bo shouts, seemingly unconvinced of the dire situation. He gazes back to the sea, frantically checking the changing waters. Ha! Brahm finally says, coughing up a plume of smoke from his lungs. A bright white smile cuts through his face, contrasting the otherwise dark and dismal presentation. Ha! It's going to take more than that to stop me, he cries triumphantly. Brahm shakes his body like a wet dog, dislodging the superficial remains of his burnt flesh, standing arrogantly upon the vast ocean, full of pride and without a scratch on him. So anyway, that was my introduction to our main character here. I wanted to show that he's a little bit more unconventional than your average human being, to hopefully inspire some mystery and intrigue. So I tried to weave a fair amount of action, adventure, but in the heart, I wanted to have like a spiritual undertone, and not in a way that's preachy by any means, because I think the whole reason of going the fiction route. But Malik, I know that you have a special place in your heart for Ram Dass, and I definitely do as well. And so it was really hard not to take some of his beautiful words of wisdom and not piece them together in here. And it's there's a famous line that he recreates from his guru, where he's asking about how to live, what's the best way to live, and he's like, love people, serve people, feed people. And it's like, that's it. I mean, he has a lot of like that it moments. And I always found it interesting that I loved that quote, but the feed people part always kind of like messed with me. I was like, feed people, like what do you mean? How does that fit into the grand cosmos of things? And then it clicked one day. It's like, oh, like maybe he's not always talking about food. And so I just had to like weave a section of that into the book. So I want to read a little bit from that now. Fast forward a little bit in the book. So this our main character is in prison right now. He's had his magical powers taken away from him. He's really down and beaten, and is like not really grooving on life right now. And there's this young kid, Mono, who comes over and is trying to give him some words of advice. So here's that. Excuse me, sir, comes a familiar voice. Brahm turns back around to see the young man crouched with a bowl of food extended towards him. What are you doing? Brahm asks flatly. Please, try to eat so you can regain your strength. Brahm is momentarily taken back by the extension of kindness, but continues to foster his commitment to anger. I already ate mine, kid, he gestures to the splatter on the ground. No need for a second helping, he says sarcastically. No, that bowl was for him, and this one's for you, he says kindly before placing the bowl in front of Brahm. I can't take your food, please just leave me alone. And I cannot let you give up on yourself, the young man responds with zest. Let your anger pour out of your heart like the porridge that lies splattered on the ground. Open yourself up for something greater to fill your vessel. You have such a fight to live, but it's so misplaced. If you can just find a way to empty your heart of all that constricts it, it might finally be able to beat with the rhythm you feel that has been taken from you. Why are you trying so hard, kid? You don't even know me. But I do. We are both brothers of Maia. We are in this together, the young man says with a tear running down his cheek. Love people, serve people, feed people, all people. That's what it's all about. That's how you maintain your humanity, and that's how you help others maintain theirs. Brahm looks up at the young man, compelled to face the source of fire that's ignited within him. Feed people? He asks, desperate to harp on semantics rather than give in to the swelling surge of emotion in his chest. Yes, the young man replies softly. And no, I'm not just referring to the action of filling one's belly, but rather that of their soul. His words tip Brahm's emotional tightrope dance over the edge. As he teeters into the depths of his opening heart, he struggles to believe what his eyes perceive. For a moment, it appears the old man from the city plaza swimming behind the young man's eyes. The thought alone is enough to summon the final crack of the emotional dam in his heart. He falls to the floor in a puddle of his own tears. As he weeps and sobs, the young man puts a hand on his back to comfort him. A deep sigh of relief can be heard from the onlooking crowd. Thank you, he says. Even though I don't deserve your kindness. Stop right there, the young man interrupts, causing Brahm to dramatically stop mid-bite. We all deserve kindness, even the guards you despise so much. They, of all people, need it the most. So that's a little bit from that section. And let's see. I'll jump back. There's another section in that area that I wanted to read, but I do want to show off something that I had a really fun time weaving into this book. And my goal was to work with animation, and then that moved to graphic novels, and then now it's moved to a very long book with lots of words. So I thought that, we live in this like ADD cultured world, and it's like, trying to get somebody who like can have like their Instagram feed like blast their brain with imaging like a lot within like 30 seconds. Like, how do you get people to want to read a big book? It's like how you put pictures in it. So I want to read a little excerpt that has a illustration in it because it's my book and I wanted illustrations in it. So that's why. And so I wanted there to be some action in here because, life has action and life has heart, and, it's got all the stuff. So there, I'm going to take you to a little snapshot of this little street brawl that's going down because, when you have mixing ideologies, sometimes you speak with your fists and not so much your words. So we have some characters with words and some with fists. So I'll read a little excerpt from this, and I'll show you the picture that accompanies it. All right. So, first of all, a little background. So we have this band of mercenaries are attacking Bo. So they're all going to be whizzing around a little bit, and hopefully without any more context, so you guys can follow along. So let's see here. Who is this guy? Isaac yells from above, still unable to fully believe his eyes. Clearly an enemy, and that's all we need to know, Aya says matter-of-factly as she continues to twirl the dart chain around her body. Em, are you going to do anything or just stand there? She asked the cloaked man in sunglasses. He could have attacked, but instead he diverted the strike, Emmanuel states, disregarding the question asked of him. So what is it, Mr. Mystery? It's like pulling teeth to get a straight answer out of you, Ainanda snaps. I will act when the time is right. Suit yourself, Aya says, brushing up his comment, but don't expect me to protect you while you stand here enjoying the sights. I never expect anything from you, Ainanda. Hopeless, she scoffs, leaving her stationary companion while making her move into battle. Who are you? Jeevan grunts from between clenched teeth. He finally releases his fist holding the stone building, sending rock and mortar flying sporadically through the air. The tightly wrapped bandages have now come loose, revealing an uncanny sight. Bo tilts his head unconsciously as he studies the thick metal plates attached along the giant's massive arm. Large bolts appear to be holding him in place like the ones in his face. Absolutely incredible, Bo thinks to himself. I never thought I would have to face off with such a force of nature. It's hard to believe they are surgically implanted with those metal plugs the day they are born, all to carry the weight they will train with for the rest of their lives. What an honor to see one of them in action, but to be their target, I need this quick before anybody gets hurt. I told you already, I'm not your enemy. We came here to work together, Bo says, trying to bring peace to their escalating situation. I don't want to hurt you. That's fine by me, Jeevan grunts. Stick to your lies. It just makes the job all the easier. Jeevan leaps from his spot and charges towards Bo. Bo is thrown back by the unsuspected speed blitz of his sizable adversary. With no time to dodge, he decides to face the giant head on. With his fist loaded along his waist like a holstered gun, he unleashes his impromptu countermeasure. Shockwaves rattle through the alley as Bo intercepts the impressive attack. The shock strikes the giant as the two men now stand eye to eye and fist to fist. Pride races to the front line of the battle as it becomes clear the first to back down loses more than just a fist fight. Continued shockwaves pour from the point of impact, ripping the breath from the bystander's unsuspecting lungs. As the friction between the two fists intensify, the crackling roar of thunder slithers between the grinding knuckles. What are you waiting for? Isaac shouts from above, finally regaining his voice. This is your chance, Aya. Right. Ainanda calls back with a shake of her head. Regaining her focus, she sends a fiery dart back into the fierce twirl around her body before launching it at the stationary adversary. Bo catches the advancing projectile out of the corner of his eye, but does little to avoid it. He reaches his available arm out to counter the attack, but his efforts are in vain. The chain easily constricts around his now outstretched appendage. Not good, he murmurs to himself. The burning head of the dart now singes his exposed flesh. I did not tell you to interfere, Jeevan cries out to Ainanda with fury. I'm sorry, Big G. I just don't think we have the luxury to take chances with this one. And with a mighty heave, she puts all of her strength into recalling her chain. The force is just enough to pull Bo off the center of gravity, thus releasing the buildup of energy between the two fists. With nowhere else for the energy to flow, the two men go flying into the building behind them. The mighty stone dwelling erupts into cobblestone confetti. And with that passage comes this illustration. So I would love to give Nevi a proper shout out with this. Her work, I absolutely loved it. In my mind, she really grasped that comic book-esque type vibe, and I really appreciate her being able to bring these characters to life in the way that she did. So there are more illustrations. I'm not going to show all of them. So for those who haven't read the book, I'm going to give a little bit of incentive to check out the picture book in there. Let's see, how am I looking on time? Good. Okay. So One of the things that I found really enjoyable with reading or with watching these series is that I'm not a poet per se, but the way that I write is maybe a little bit more flowery than some other books that I've come across. And so I would say that some of them err on poetic vibes. I don't know. I'm not a literary guy, so hopefully I'm not like shooting myself in the foot with this. But I really enjoy playing with words and sounds and flow. And there's this one section where Brahm is being dragged along this corridor to be tortured, and he's just completely down and out. And I really try to put myself in his space, and it's like, what would that experience be like? Like, what kind of sounds and experiences would be privy to your space? And I thought that I would really get hung up on the boots. So this is a section called Into the White Light. This is how the chapter begins. Bootstrap footsteps echo through the long, dark corridor. Each step is so precise and meticulous, the guard's march could double for a momentary metronome. Brahm's flaccid flesh drags upon the dusty floor, filling the sonic spaces between each carefully placed step. The normally quiet corridor now shakes with restlessness, forced to echo the not-so-distant drum of turmoil below. Its dimly lit walls quiver under the structural stress. Glass from the kerosene lanterns rattle around in their iron rod frames, sounding like an anxious waiter cradling a teacup and saucer. Dust and soot shake free from the ceiling, raining down upon the lone guard and his prisoner like a snowy night. None of the commotion proves to be a worthy distraction for the guard. He maintains his prideful pace in the midst of the rumbling symphony of chaos. His mind remains set on delivering his prisoner on schedule. Love. Brahm's mental musings ruminate over the lingering concept. It's all bound together with love, you say? An involuntary cough is triggered from his lungs. The taste of iron fills his mouth, striking the urge to spit. He looks down to see a speck of blood from his battered gums splattered upon the ground he scrapes against. He's not given long to contemplate his mark against the world as he is dragged away by the marching metronome. He dives even further into his reluctant path of reckoning. Humph, he grunts. Where is the love in this? All right, so that's that section. And let's see. I have a couple more things. Let's see. Okay, let's see, two more sections, or one, two, one, two. Okay, all right, we'll go with two. All right, so we're gonna jump back into some more Ram Dass inspiration here, and this is kind of a wild ride because sometimes the reading, or sometimes what I've written, I read about what inspired it years after I wrote it. So riddle me that. I don't know. Time is strange, and in writing this book, I've just realized how strange and malleable it really is. So as of I don't know, earlier this week, I was reading this passage about Ram Dass and talking about his guru, and how he talks about letting go of attachments and becoming love, and being that kind of the spiritual jam as to what you're going for. And there's a character in this book that is maybe loosely inspired by his guru, and it's very interesting that that guy in the book says kind of the same thing here that he did to Ram Dass. So anyway, I mean, if you want, we can talk about how wild that is. But anyway, so the book from Ram Dass is Polish the Mirror, and this is an interweaving of the teachings of becoming love and working with your shadow, like shadow work in the spiritual realm. All right, so this is Brahm talking to the guru figure. Okay, Brahm says with a heavy sigh, I feel like I've really messed up here. There's still time to fix things. It's the guru guy. How? The eagerness in Brahm's voice is welcoming. Barbarossa smiles and points his finger at the thread of light that brought Brahm into the void. The shadowy figure Brahm saw earlier standing on the other side, waving to him. What is that? Brahm asks. It's you, of course. Me? Yes, the you don't want to deal with. The ego, the emotions, the pain, the memories, the attachments. He is the you behind the powers, behind all the flair and the distractions. He is the aspect of you that was born into the world in order to be refined and purified. He is the shadow you have been running away from your whole life. Everyone in that world you just came from is working together to help each other figure things out and to come to peace with their own shadows. Some know that, most don't, but that's okay. It's part of the refinement. How do we avoid all the pain that comes from figuring things out? Brahm asked with a quiver in his throat. Sometimes we need to experience pain to understand we don't want to inflict it, Barbarossa shouts proudly. Someday you will be allowed to die, shed your body for good and travel on in this vast realm of existence, but not before you do the work on loving your shadow. Because, well, tell me, of all the times you used your power to run away from your body, why did you ever return? Well, Brahm stammers, I thought, I don't know. It just felt like home base, you know? The physical world was where my father was, where Bo was. It was home. Cherish that home. It's where most learn where love is. Love is all around you, but you don't always feel it, do you? No, I guess I don't. What do you think will happen when you come to fully love your shadow? I'll always feel the love. Ha, Barbarossa shouts. You will become love, don't you see? Suffering is what drives you away from wanting to be in the world. But suffering is just the resistance to love. Once you see through that, there will be no pain, no more suffering, no more resistance, no more you, no more shadows. Just love. You will see. Yeah, I hear you, Brahm says, trying to soak in the seer's words. But from this vantage point, it's a pretty easy thing to say. When you're not in pain, that is. When you're not in suffering, it all seems so simple. But what happens if I go back? If I still can go back? Will I remember all of this? Or will I just go back to my old ways? Doesn't matter. Your true self never forgets. It's what remembers the stage of refinement you left off at. It remembers everything, so don't worry about forgetting. You will do so in order to remember again later. It's a dance. It's all a dance. And the pain? I've got a lot of pain waiting for me. There was a great deal of resistance before you came. Oh, right, Brahm says, contemplating jumping back into his earlier predicament. There was a lot of pain waiting for me. You have a lot of resistance to work through, Barbarossa says, falling back into laughter. Haha, embrace it all. It's all you after all. Barbarossa slides back into his chair, looking for Brahm to make the next move. Even his chair buttons dance around and smile, looking like they are overflowing with love themselves. All right, so I set my mark for 30 minutes, and so I would like to end with my favorite part of this book, and I think will fit into the poetry theme because, well, I did write a piece of poetry, and I wanted to weave a little bit of poetry that I've written in my life, and there's a band in the story that will perform periodically, and I thought that'd be a good exposition to throw some poetry in there, and then people could put, words to sound if they wanted to. So here it is. This is a song that has been called Truth or Dare, which is going to be more of a poem because I'm not going to sing it, I promise you. So yeah, here we go. So we hand over our funds to the devious man, rich from his plan to keep our heads buried deep in the sand. Shackled by debt, we are left to fret, and yet, let us not forget what binds us, what perpetually blinds us. Our habit to get high off the fumes of the societal gloom and doom, ideas that drive us to consume a relief from the darkened despair of our skewed worldly affair. But is this truth, or do you choose dare? Dare to fend off the fear, to look inside and clear the scrambled mind and realize what is yours to find. Hidden behind the lies exists a world left to realize, one comprised of love and light, a brightness worth the fight, the light first the night, what is wrong versus what is right. It's a battle that rages within us all, so listen to the call and worry not of the fall, from a false grace that holds no place, and the truth that sits in the center of your divine and heavenly face. The face that reflects back, even when you think you live in lack, it whispers the hard fact that if you open your eyes, you too can realize that the curriculum of these worldly classes are just schoolrooms designed for the masses to teach the lessons of peace and prosperity, not of single solidarity or punitive causality. So don't go thinking you are alone. That alone is the greatest fallacy. The angels above are always guiding you with love, are always showering you with love, guiding you with a gentle nudge, not with a forceful shove. So open your book and take a good look at all who are here to teach the way, hear what they have to say. Separate at first glance, stop and give them a second chance, and you too will see what it is we were all meant to be. Heavenly bodies by birth, let us stray by the fears and lies planted to lessen our worth. But remember, this is our spiritual turf. We are the one and one is the all, so don't take the bait and trip and fall into the lies that aim to divide and control. It's all they have to sell, and all they ask is that you pay with your soul. And yeah, all right, obviously I got a lot more words here that I could go with, but I think I'm gonna stop there and see what comes next.
Thank you so much, James. That was fabulous. I can't wait till you get to see the chat section and some of the comments, but yeah,
Okay.
We are the one and the one is all. A lot of lines resonated with all of us at the same time. And I do think that one of the things several of us were commenting on is the musicality in your work that you chose. If people want to unmute for a moment, we just say, great job, James. I know this was your first time doing this. And so yeah. I'm so glad we were with you for that. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome work, dude.
Yeah. Okay, Ben.
Very loving work too.
Does anybody have any questions? I was trying to pay attention to the chat section, but I didn't see, I like that you gave us backdrop. James, I think that kind of helped us, leap in.
Mhm.
And I liked hearing about the cover and seeing the illustrations. Does anybody have any comments or questions or things you wanted to ask James about?
I love the story, but I'm curious about your writing process. How did you jump into this every day?
Okay. So I don't know if it's conventional or not because I don't really know how other people write their stories, but I have a very vivid imagination. And I also have narcolepsy. And so one of the ways that I keep myself awake is to try to keep an idea in my head that's captivating enough to stay conscious. And so over the years, I've kind of gone to this world to like, like, I don't know, it sounds a little obtuse, but like to stay alive as I'm driving. So I'll have the story playing in my head. And when I go to sleep, I'll dream, and so I'll take an idea or story and I'll just play with it ad nauseum in my head while I'm dreaming, and then I'll wake up and write it all down and capture it from there.
I love that. I think it's always interesting to hear a writer's process because it varies person to person. Even if we have things that are similar, it varies person to person. And I think all of us have immense amount of respect for people that sit down and write something out. I think that it's particularly if you're someone who has done it, how much it takes. And so I get your question, Christy. It's how did you follow through? Because all of us know a friend who is creative and brilliant and says, I have a great idea for a story. And they tell you the idea and you think, yeah, go for it. And, it never happens. So it's always, to me, a beautiful thing to see somebody who has that idea, who runs that story, who talks about it, and then actually writes it and puts it out in the world. So I think that's none of us underestimate what that took, is what I would say. So fabulous. Yeah, I'm going to go back to some of the places that we were all quoting. Yeah, I think all of us really like the picture that. What a great collaboration. But they of all people need it the most. Hard to remember, but true. Shamala said, was talking about with the guards. Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, great job. I like that you chose the sections you chose. I thought worked really well. Any other thoughts or questions or insights?
I was just curious if there were any sections that dealt with the characters inside, sort of like their feelings. There's a bunch of places where you're dealing with their spiritual journey. And then there's the action, and I get the world a little bit. It may just be the selections that we pick what we can read, and obviously there's a lot of books. So I was just curious if that's there in stuff you haven't read, or whether that was like you deliberately chose to do the spiritual conversations rather than the internal emotions. Or
it was a conscious choice. So I did choose to highlight those sections, especially being that Malika was offering the platform. I felt like she could resonate with some of the sections that that I read. But in terms of the emotional piece, there's a undercurrent between the main character and a woman that he meets, and I wanted to take a different take on more of the romantic kind of ploy. My wife and I had a very unconventional gathering where it was a very slow build where we were learning each other like each step of the way before we made like any moves, and it felt very organic, and I wanted to try to capture that in story. And so throughout the series, Brahm and this character Sophia, they had very different ideas and feelings and emotions about like what is right, how to best interpret what's going on. And as their lives meld together more, you see that the exposition of like, oh, why don't you see it this way? This is totally how it's supposed to be. It's like, oh, but how does that feel? Like that's not right for me. I see where you're going, but like I need to work on myself. I need to work on being me. And this has been a very overwhelming experience. Like, we need to reconcile that before we move forward. And I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question per se. If not, I'll try to do better.
yeah, no, that was good. I mean, nobody ever gets every possible thing into one book, so that there's always choices to be made. I was just curious about that. That makes good sense.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, that's a very layered and nuanced question too. And I think, especially being a psychiatric nurse, I probably would have expectations that rich inner world and knowledge of how emotionally we process or experience things. So I like that question. I also think that one of the things that has consistently frustrated me with a lot of spiritual writing, it's as if it's in the head and not embodied. And I always have felt like you can't spiritually pole vault over the realities and the challenges of life. For me, that's what's been very true. And I resonate most deeply with spiritual writers who, talk about things from a very gut level place. Right now I'm thinking of Annie Lamont. I don't know why, but there's something in her embodiment that sometimes really resonates with me, because she also is irreverent in her humor. And I did notice, James, that, one of your characters in particular had kind of a sarcastic tongue and some humor. And I really think that that's an important aspect for what I go to reading for, some of that irreverent humor always appeals to me.
Yeah. And if I may,
So,
I feel like as
yeah.
we're talking about this, I had a better answer to your question. There, when it comes to the spiritual concept, like it can be incredibly overwhelming, where it's like some people just get in, somebody's like, what is going on? And I completely forgot. I don't know. They're two of my favorite characters. There's these two kids in the story that represent like two of the different like ways of going about it. Like one is like hearing all of this like magical spiritual stuff going on. It's like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I don't understand it, but this is great. Let's go. And his friend is like, are you kidding me right now? My whole life is like falling apart around me. Like reality is now malleable. Like matter is like not what I thought. Like we have these like demigods rolling around, like blasting things. Like I am not okay. Like this is not okay. Like make it stop, go back, rewind. And you see as you have these very like over the top, like superhuman type people like moving around doing stuff. You have these two kids like, what is going on? Like this is nuts. So I wanted to have a straight character, a foil, where it's like, not everybody feels all warm and fuzzy when it comes to spiritual stuff. Like sometimes when reality changes, it's super scary. And so I did want to capture that. And yeah, I don't know how I forgot about them when you asked your question, but I wanted to give them some spotlight because they kind of pull its story together.
That's awesome. It seems like from hearing you talk, James, that I also think it doesn't surprise me that fiction worked for you, because you seem to fill in the gaps or notice where there needs to be. And I have to tell you, as someone who considers myself as besides having ADD in real life, I have it in writing in particular. And so one page is enough for me. And the idea that a character would exist beyond one page into like 100 pages is terrifying to me, because I will forget, what the character's name is. I mean, I just don't have that. And I can see, by the way, hearing you talk, I think this is how you tackled that. I had somebody say, well, just get a clothesline and have like a storyboard where you keep the key facts so that things stay the same. And I was like, oh, you've mistaken me for someone that's going to follow through. That's not happening. I'm sorry. I love that you think that, but that's just not happening. So it's interesting. I wouldn't have known that about your process or about you per se, but you're a lot more organized and probably detail oriented than I knew. So that's fascinating.
I mean, I think I was learning about that as I went through this. Like I didn't consider myself that either, but you do what you got to do to get it done. So I had to get a little bit more organized than I was.
That's fabulous. Well, I noticed both Susan and I are ending up in the dark, Susan.
Oh,
I
geez,
forgot
yeah.
to turn on a light.
What's happening?
Yeah, I'm down in my yoga studio, and I didn't put a light on because it was so sunny. And now, clearly Susan and I are both in the dark. So this is what happens. I would love to, number one, thank you so much, James. And number two, thank everybody for being here. We're going to head to our open mic portion, and I'm taking out my phone light so I can read my list. If I miss anybody who wants to read, just send me a message and hopefully I'll see it. Chrissy, I'm going to come to you, and rather than spotlighting people, let's just go ahead and enjoy reading and listening together. So it's all you, Christy. Don't forget to unmute.
Okay, here we go. Can everybody hear me?
You're good.
Yes.
So this is from my first book, Finding Her, and yesterday was its 1-year anniversary. And I'm so excited. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a quadriplegic with cerebral palsy. So I do write a little bit with a disability slant, but this is probably the most universal poem in the book. And you'll see why when I start reading. This is called Yoga Pants, and this is a totally true story that happened at Target here in Greenville.
Yeah.
Yoga pants. Shopping at Target, I see them and smile. Remember wearing a similar pair? Sister yogas. These are heathered gray. A teal roll-down band provides a backdrop for silvered leopard spots. Remembering my legs, strong and shapely, used to plant my feet, raise my bottom, bridge all my strength. My sister yogas assisted that derriere move, squeezing tight, lifting body parts into perfect poses. My abs, never carved, but always flat, stood at attention, saluting the colored swath that kissed my belly button and nuzzled its bejeweled ring. I have to try these on. Snatching them off the rack, I glide into the fitting room. Just outside my stall door, a full-length mirror waits. My eyes alight with hope as they adjust to the reflection. A fellow shopper smiles behind me. Oh, you precious thing. These yoga pants hug your love bundle. And just like that, my belly button's unintentional smile opened wide the veil, swaddling my all too unrealistic fantasy, lost somewhere between not pregnant and not even almost flat. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy, and happy book anniversary.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
I put the link in the chat if anybody's interested.
Could you put it in again, just so that if people would
Sure.
like to buy Christy's book, Becoming Her, was out by Finishing Line Press, and there is a link directly to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna, I would love to hear you read.
Okay, let's see. This was inspired by John Prine, one of his songs, those of you who were familiar with his music. And it's a song called Oh My Stars, Donna's Gone to Mars. His song was Oh My Stars, Linda's Gone to Mars. But the title's Oh My Stars, Donna's Gone to Mars. Charlie just can't forget the time I went nuts. If I open my Bible any day but Sunday, or tiptoe out of bed at 2 a.m. to jot down the scrap of a dream, he remembers. Sometimes when I read him a poem I just wrote, I notice his confused parental eyebrows. It's not that he doesn't get it. He worries still when he sees familiar signs. The other night I woke him, said I heard jazz, asked him to turn off the music that was keeping me awake. I said I couldn't figure out where the electronic device was active and can never remember the magic words that stopped the noise. He heard nothing. I could hear the worry in his voice until the next morning, his shoulders were able to let go when during breakfast, he heard the twang of John Prine from the bedroom upstairs and a song about Linda. Some days, even I am confused and think about calling the doctor until I remind myself A psychiatrist will always find something wrong if you have good insurance.
Jonna, thank you. That is fabulous. This is why I say our open mics are amazing. I mean, they really are. Thank you. Brian, I'm ready for you.
He
let me
just
see.
messaged me. He had to dip out.
No worries. No worries. I just realized I was like, I don't see him. That's fabulous. Karen, I'm excited. Don't forget to unmute. There you go.
Okay, I'm unmuted. All right. Okay, I got some sort of fresh ink today. So you guys, I just have to share this book with you. It's not mine. It's this is such a beautiful book, Magnified by Minnie Bruce Pratt. I'm obsessing over this book. It's so beautiful. It's exquisite. It's heartbreaking. Anyway, this poem is written in response to me getting through that book. Discovering Minnie Bruce Pratt in Memoriam. I come to you in the slight thawing spaces between boot print and wet asphalt, crunching down through the refreezing tread of your left behind steps. The gray of the silence between footfalls is metallic, and the taste of the air is the pensive pinching down of teeth on a single hopeful stem of straw grass. Your poems are haunts permeating the clenching of my breaths.
Karen, holy
This book,
smokes.
y'all,
Well,
it's
I'm
exquisite.
also going to say that poet who read that book, but Minnie Bruce Pratt is amazing. So I'm not
Yes.
surprised you're inspired.
Ooh, yeah.
I hope it keeps happening.
Oh,
We love you on fire, Karen. Regina, I'm coming towards you. There you are.
I enjoyed the reading. I am the daughter of a librarian. I love storytelling. I love to hear these universal messages. I call them sacred messages that manage to come through them. And so thank you. Enjoyed you. This poem, along that vein, this poem that I'm going to read is entitled Anansi Unbroken. And Anansi was a West African supernatural being, manifesting as a human or a spider. You may have heard of him. There are many names that he goes by, but Anansi is the one that I most often use. Sometimes portrayed as a trickster or a jokester, but always known for his cleverness and ability to navigate difficult situations. He traveled with the diaspora, tucked in their minds, emerging even in treacherous times. And I was inspired to write this poem kind of after seeing an episode of American Gods. I don't know if you've ever seen that. And Anansi was one of the American gods portrayed. Anansi slid himself under shackles between wrought iron and ankles, formulating a plan for his people. He understood that this was no joke. He knew that no counsel in darkness would indeed hearken the darkest end, Anansi. So he traveled with them, furling and unfurling hairy tendrils, reaching, weaving plans in the corners of minds, stitching lips closed, deftly plucking threads out. As time whispered to him, tell them when to speak and when not, when to bear, when to run, when to hide, how to move pride to another space in their minds, how to live to see another day, how to construct families of those from other nations bound to the brutality of the new lands, whether dry sand, whether barren soil, whether miry clay, whether frozen rock, whether wet, hot, hellish earth. Anansi, fashion trickster, friend of fickle and folly, found his highest calling while whispering words of survival. Oftentimes feet up, oftentimes head down, smiles covered, yet they smiled. Laughter concealed, yet they laughed. Planned subversive, yet they planned ghost immersive, yet they lived. Anansi, master of shade and creator of shadings, seamed curtains around clearings as the skins tethered to misery, communed with the God above all gods, differently named by diverse tongues. This great spirit God fell like cooling water in raging fires upon them raining shrouds of hope. Anansi knew his creator would know what to do, and my, how they danced. My, how they prayed. My, how they praised. In this broken, unknown land, Anansi, diasporic traveler of many names and forms, who still lives in the mouths and collective memory of his people, those who still cry out, those who still seek, those who want to know the stories, those who want to speak their own. Anansi.
Oh, Regina, just freaking fabulous.
Thank you.
And our final reader for tonight, Shamala. The poem you read last week, I have come back to in my brain and wish I had it printed out sometime. I'm gonna ask you to send it to me.
Well, it's odd you should say that because like I don't expect it to win or anything, but I'm trying to do a video of it for Button.
Yeah.
Because you know what the heck? You should
it's
throw these
really-
things out into the world.
Yes.
Because I actually wrote that sitting at the ocean on a very cold day after something bad had happened with like it was so cold that the ink in my pen wouldn't go. And I've got tons of ocean videos. So I thought, what the heck? Let's see. It's a new kind of creating. So I'm playing with that. I will send you the text for sure.
That's
Thank you.
fabulous. And the poem you might consider entering into Celestine Davis, who sometimes comes here, runs a Down East. They have a poetry section, and it's Down East Film Fest, and it's fabulous. So when you send your poem, I'll send you a link to that, but it's called
That would be
Down East.
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and that way you have another place to enter it, because there's
Yeah.
some amazing poems that I have gotten to see via the video poems. So good.
Malika, can I say also South Florida Poetry Journal? I do video poems too. They take poetry.
I gotta write that down or it will go out of my head.
Thank you for that, Regina. Good. Anything that we can add and send each other in directions of is a good thing.
South Florida video poetry?
South Florida Poetry Journal.
Poetry journal.
And
Thank you,
they take them
Regina.
on submittable. So if you look them up.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will do. Thank you.
And now we'll
Ye-
turn it over for the poem.
Well, I got two short little poems today that are actually very old. I'm trying to put together a small chapbook of early poems. So if you imagine someone half my age and who's a relatively new immigrant, this is the first visit from an overseas parent. So the father of an Asian daughter who is doing well in America is excited to receive a plane ticket from a daughter who says, "Appa, please come and visit me." But then, getting out of the airplane in America, he sees his suitcase. It looks different, less. Back home, visiting his parents in their village, it's poor there. Taxi drivers carrying that same suitcase from the bus stop call him sir. Now, in this American airport, he sees his daughter's eyes hold embarrassment, sees her thinking, Appa is not doing so well as his daughter. What is he to do? He's done. He's held a baby. He's saved. He's prayed, wishing a better day someday for her. Sorry, wishing a better life someday for her. Now, though, he worries because he never bowed his head. Okay, and the other side of that story is the daughter, stranger in a strange land. I have served flowers at holiday feasts, carrying a silver tray, jasmine strands touching my fingers. Sometimes my elders gave me saffron to hold, or rose water to bless the head of the arriving guest. Now, in this austere land, isolate, how will I offer welcome? I cannot find the balm of incense here, or holy saffron thread. There is no salt, no ritual water, only me. I am a vessel without ornament. Namaste.
That gave me chills. Oh, thank you so much. Yep, a holy,
Welcome.
make sure y'all are reading the comments. I hope I said that soon enough that y'all can go and read what people are writing, but yeah, that's gorgeous. Thank you. And I'm excited you're putting together a chapbook for that. Well, as always, thank you to everybody who read. Thank you for being here. And James, it was a thrill and a delight to host you and celebrate with your book and you. Everybody be well, and I will see you on another Thursday next week. We are booked all the way until December, guys. So with spring ones already coming in. So I hope to see y'all on another Thursday. Thank y'all so very much. Bye.